I remember at Craft Bar we got reviewed by The Observer.
Yeah.
And
Bloomberg.
Exactly. There
Wall
was
Street Journal, Times ×2.
Financial Times. A lot of reviews. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think just so many of those are not available anymore.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Akhtar Nawab is today's guest, and we dig into his influential career in New York City dining. He's the chef-owner of the terrific restaurants Wayward Fare and Alti Calidad in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn, and he previously ran the kitchen at La Esquina. Akhtar moved to New York in 1998 and worked under the chef Tom Colicchio at Gramercy Tavern for several years. He was part of the opening staff at Craft, and in 2002 he helped open Craft Bar, later serving as executive chef. He's mentored many stars in the industry, including David Chang, who credits him as a major influence. While he'd never say it himself, those who follow New York City restaurants understand that Akhtar is a giant in the industry. It was a real pleasure having him in the studio, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Also on the show, we catch up with Javier Cabral. He's the editor-in-chief of LA Taco, and we discuss the publication's important work covering the Los Angeles ice raids and so much more. Akhtar Nawab, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
I've been a big fan of your work. We don't really know each other, but I've known your work, and I really wanted to talk to you a lot about your time working at Gramercy Tavern at Craft, and then in New York, and in your modern restaurants, Alti Calidad and Wayward Fare.
Sure.
Just lovely experiences. I went to Wayward Fare, and I said it on Three Things, which is a segment we run at the end of some of these episodes, and I just loved my meal there.
Well, got to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's rotating, but what I like about Wayward Fare is you've got this big idea of honoring the spice route and having global flavors, to use a bad cliche on my part. And you do that. You execute it. You have meze at the top of the menu with this great wood-fired breads that you're making. But then, and I say but because I think sometimes we get lost in the concepts. You're just executing proteins at such a cool level. 2 fish. You've got a steak. You've got great chicken, and really great chicken. And I just think for a restaurant to nail this kind of concept, but then get the proteins right, I really recommend your restaurant.
I appreciate it. I think one of the things that we really get into over there is, listen, there's a lot happening, but it appears very accessible and simple in a way. But I always like presenting it that way. That way, when you really dig into it and you start tasting, there's a little more happening. It's just interesting and exciting. And I think that's part of what we're after.
I agree. I think you have to sell folks on a promise. It can't just be, we're doing accessible food.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but you really want it to be a place where you take your parents, or you'd go on a weeknight and be able to get a nice piece of fish, which everyone kind of wants sometimes.
Yeah, listen, I agree totally. It's it is there for everyone, but at the same time, it's not for everyone in a way.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it later, but I want to know, first up, when you're not on the clock in Prospect Heights at your 2 restaurants, when you have time, where do you like to go out in New York for restaurants?
So I just moved to Brooklyn, right? So my girlfriend, I just moved to Brooklyn.
You're in Brooklyn. You're in the borough of where your restaurants are.
It hasn't been that way ever, right?
Yeah.
I worked in Manhattan, of course, for many years before Alta Calidad, but we just moved to Bergen and Fourth, so I'm still very much exploring that area. But I lived on the Upper West Side for many, many years, on 102nd and 72nd, and then eventually 64th. And, my daughter was with me kind of half the week. So I always stayed in proximity to her mom, and we're never too far from each other. But now that she's gone to college, I figured maybe it's now a good time to explore. So I'm still kind of finding my way a little bit through a new neighborhood, which is exciting, a little different.
Yeah. When you are out, are there any classics or favorites that you're into restaurant-wise?
Yeah, listen, I haven't been back to Missy Robbins' place in forever.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going to Four Horsemen with a friend of mine. Haven't been. This old cook of mine years ago has a handful of places. I haven't been to Theodora yet. I'm looking forward to going.
Yeah.
Tomera worked for me for, I don't know, many years ago now, but he's got a handful of places. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking all that stuff out.
Yeah, I think you're busy with 2 restaurants, so you don't have that much
Yeah,
time.
certainly.
What's food like growing up in Louisville for you?
So Louisville, you said it right.
I try.
There's a lot of ways to say it, but
I
yeah,
try. I
Louisville's
got
right.
Michigan, so I got a little bit. Consider Louisville to be like Midwest, not Southern.
Right. Listen, I very much grew up with an Indian kind of cultural backdrop. My parents were very new to this country when I was growing up in that part of the world, right? My brother's born in India and came here. I was born in Milwaukee, actually.
Yeah.
My dad lived in Chicago for a little while, and then we ended up in Louisville. So the majority of my time was spent in Louisville. So my mom was very much cooking Indian food at that time. But, giving credit, I think, to her is like she really had to figure out how to make these Indian dishes that she grew up with her mother for my brother and I. And that was really difficult, I think, because she didn't have access to everything. So I think without really knowing it, she was kind of inventing something new along the way. And it was really kind of later in life, I was like, it's really kind of remarkable that she was able to put this stuff together so effortlessly. But at the same time, it was really interesting and very much, beyond delicious, of course, but she really kept some of those cultural kind of takeaways from growing up in the kitchen with her mom and applying it to my brother and I. And that was a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. Is there like a dish that sticks out that she kind of invented or used, like, India and this new grocery store experience in America?
So there's this dish called a grel. And I don't know where it really originally came from, but it's really my mom's adaptation of like this Mughlai kind of Nawabi cuisine that she grew up with. And it's like this lamb that's marinated with lots of yogurt, onions, and she broils it very slowly. Whereas normally I think that would go in a hot tandoor style oven, and lots of peppercorns. And it comes out a couple of days after marinating. And it's like really unctuous and so delicious. Just big flavor, very concentrated. It's not like a stewy thing. It's much more of a caramelized, almost dry-ish side of lamb, but it's so tender. I always thought that was a really great dish she made. For breakfast, she would do these puris. I don't know if you know what puris are.
Sure.
So these fried puffy breads with her version of like this aloo bhaji, which is like a potato style dish, but / hash browns, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple of fried eggs, and it's like the ultimate kind of breakfast. She still makes it for us when we all get together.
So good.
And her grandkids absolutely love it, which is a really special thing to see. My daughter looks so forward to my mom's cooking, and that's the same way I feel, even now.
Yeah, I love that memory. I mean, having a puri in the morning there's nothing
forget
better.
about it. It's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
I love that. Well, let's talk about early days in New York for you, because I love this moment in time. I've had Tom Colicchio on, your former boss, talking about Gramercy Tavern, and then later opening Craft and bringing a bunch of folks along with him to open Craft. You were one of those people working at Gramercy, then opening Craft on the opening team. Let's first talk about Gramercy Tavern. I'm curious how you, as a young cook, but having had some good experience there, what's it like working with Tom? Because I'll link to the episode with Tom. Like he's really like writing tasting menus every day at Gramercy Tavern at a time. He's got 3 menus he's running at the same time. What's that like working the line? Well,
my timing historically is bad for everything. It was great, I think, for working there, because he was in the kitchen a lot back then. He was very involved, I think. Sometimes he would just do his lap around the kitchen. He would poke around everyone's food, but every once in a while, he would kind of push you out of the way and say, I'm working meats. You know what I mean? Or he would put himself on the meat station and we got to work next to him. And it was really great because I think he's got a unique style of cooking. It's very, over time, I think he's adapted, his professional side of cooking, which he's so knowledgeable about, and the home style of cooking, which he kind of blends together. And it's a different way, I think, of doing a lot of this. I think now it's a little more common. But at the time, I don't think there was anyone really doing that kind of thing. So it was really great to be part of that with him in the kitchen. And also at the time, he was very attentive, I think, paying attention, like, this kid's good, or this kid's paying attention, or this kid's got it, he's going to work hard. I think he was very good at picking out talent.
Yeah, it sounds like that. I mean, knowing the folks that came out of his restaurants, he also like helps boost them like later on opening restaurants.
No, definitely.
He's a big supporter of his staff. So let's move on to Kraft.
Mm-hmm.
The incredible roster. I've thought that this opening roster at Kraft is some of, I would say, New York's biggest talents. We've got Jonathan Beno, Damon Weiss, David Chang, Liz Chapman, all working under Marco Canora and Tom, of course, Colicchio. That's like a murderer's row of just buzzy names, and I'm forgetting people, so you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
But tell me tell me some more names, and like, what's this first opening crew of Kraft like?
Yeah, well, Karen Damasco, James Tracy.
Damn.
Brian Cernattinger.
Yeah.
There's some others too. We already mentioned Damon David. Of course, Beno, but Marco, who you mentioned. So, I mean, all of us together, we all knew each other already. The only one who I think kind of came in when Kraft opened was David and this guy, Brian. Mm-hmm. But, like, they all fit in instantly. It was very easy in many ways to work with these guys because we knew each other, we knew the expectation we had of each other, and we knew that we were there for kind of the sole purpose of executing at the highest level possible. And Tom gave us, Chef gave us that platform, say, here you go after it. And we all did. We all embraced it very much so. Ferocious kind of mentality back then. And we're always trying to be better than one another. So there was a very high level of competition, which we all also liked, and it was a good environment for a younger cook to be.
Are there like mini rivalries within the kitchen trying to get Marco's attention and or get promoted? I mean, all these folks have run groups.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, like not just restaurants but groups.
Well, I think Chef, Canora and Colicchio, I think they know they can't do it alone. So I think there was always opportunity for more within the company at the time. And when Marco left Open Hearth, it did open up more, and I went over to Craft Bar. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Damon ended up taking the job at Kraft eventually. So there was more always, I think, for people if they wanted. Beno moved on to go be the chef at Per Se.
Yeah.
There's just, a lot happening.
Tell me about the idea of Kraft and like bringing a family style menu.
Yeah.
Kind of in like you could call it fine dining. I mean, it really at a price point that would be similar to fine dining at the era. It's really revolutionary.
No one had done it. I don't think. Yeah,
No.
A lot of people did it soon after. I think it didn't take long, but I do think Chef was first. About executing. It was hard for us cooks because we were so used to plating individually, and that's all we had ever known, right? If the two of us went out to eat, it would be 2 plates. But, here it went on something that went in the center of the table in a very beautiful, simple, homey kind of way, but so elevated that it was kind of very different. It was a special time, I think. It's hard for those places to exist now.
Yeah, definitely now. I mean, there were a lot of copycats, but like, you found family style in Europe, right?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Went to Europe, you would see, and it was always a novelty. I can imagine in the 90s in New York, like you do family style and it's probably considered like lower end.
Yeah, exactly.
Food,
That's right. Yeah, it's like you go eat in France or Italy or whatever, you have a cocotte with, the gâteau or whatever it's going to be, and they put a spoon in there. Same thing in Italy. It's very similar. But I think this country had always been very individualized, a la carte. The idea of sharing style restaurants hadn't really exploded at that time. There were tapas restaurants,
Of course, yeah.
Alex Raja, I think, had her place.
Yeah, Chiquito.
Yeah, but even before that,
Tiapol.
And, I think that stuff was slowly coming on site, and then eventually Casamono opened. And I think that opened the door for a lot of other people.
Yeah. When you're back at Kraft in this first year, are there like dishes that you remember that you're just stunned by, like just you felt very fondly of these dishes? You felt compelled to
At Kraft?
At Kraft.
You know, we took a lot of pride in everything,
Yeah.
but I worked a lot on the fish station back in those days, and Benno used to work the meat side very often, so he was kind of managing the meat side, and Damon used to work like the app station and the meat app station, and Brian would work next to me on like the fish app station. So he'd be picking up scallops and things like that. Again, the simplicity of everything was really kind of the key.
That's Tom's style.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is like, to get these simple things on the plate isn't so simple.
No.
So it's actually much more complicated. So there's a lot of dishes I think that come to mind that I think are, again, like I wouldn't say they're super complicated to look at, but like Marco used to do this like monkfish style ossobuco. And it was his version of like a cachuco Tuscan stew. But again, it was super refined, and he was always breathing down my neck about this thing. You know what I mean? So he'd come over and taste it every day. It had to be right every day. Or, we'd make, the cure for like the fluke crudo or the hamachi crudo, whatever we're doing. All those things I think are, very memorable. I think, making polenta, I don't know many people were buying Ensign Mills polenta back then.
No.
And there wasn't just like the kind of the journey to find the best of whatever you could find was really kind of relentless.
Yeah. And what year is this again? Remind us. When was the opening year of Kraft?
It was like 2000, I think.
Yeah, it was like 2000, 2001. Yeah, right around that, yeah. I want to bring up Chang. He's called you publicly as a mentor. He considers you,
nice.
Yeah, and he also speaks about his time at Kraft, where he was like answering phones and like, I mean, he was probably took some reps in the kitchen. But what's your relationship? I ask about Chang. Biggest probably name coming out of that kitchen, just at least from a personality.
David has, he started, I think, answering phones, and there was a manager who was working there at the time, this guy Mark, and David really wanted to work in the kitchen. I think Marco said there's no space, and he's like, well, what can I do to get in the building? Yeah, in a true, I want to be here kind of way. Then he'd be answered phones, and he went to school. Eventually, there was a space in Gare Manger, and he started working, Gare Manger with Liz. Mm-hmm. And eventually he moved to kind of the morning shift, and we had these Saturdays together in the morning where it would just be the two of us, and we just had a lot of fun. It was just like a good time cooking, and we would joke around, and we had a big huge list, and it was just a lot of fun, I think. So if I could have influenced him anyway, I'm glad, grateful I could.
That's great. It's you're being humble, I'm sure, and that sounds like it's a nice origin story for Chang and what he would end up building at Momofuku.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Yeah,
yeah,
really cool.
So speaking of the East Village in Momofuku, you open EU, and I want to hear about that because I went probably a few times. I remember it. It was memorable. Like in this, you were reviewed there. I think you really made a name for yourself at that restaurant.
It was in between Craft Bar, which I was a chef at for many years.
You were, yeah.
And opening my own place. And, we were trying to, scramble to find some money together and things like that. And my business partner at the time was working for, I can't remember who it was now, Don Pintobono, the old days.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like I wasn't looking for a place to stay long term in a way. Like I had, a daughter at the time she was born, I had to take care of, and I think my skill set was at the time really just being in the kitchen, and I know that's where I needed to be. And so someone reached out to me about the EU, and they had some trouble finding the right chef to take ownership of the place. And the owner of the restaurant also had, I think, a difficult time seeing eye to eye and being aligned with whoever was hired. And so I came on board, and I had good experience for that kind of food. Mm-hmm. It was a little more Northern European that
Yeah, I
I think
remember
I
it
had
being like that.
a
Nordic
ton.
before it even like Noma was a name.
Yeah, and I didn't have a lot of experience with that. So
Yeah.
the owner had a little more experience, so he would kind of influence some of the decision making, and sometimes he'd say, "Read this book," and it was interesting. He'd say, "Here," as Jason would say, here's a book. I want to try to do something like this. It doesn't need to be like that, but let's just think of what we can do, right?" And so it was this fun exploratory thing, but at the same time, there was, I think, because of the past chefs that were there was some stigma associated with it.
Always challenging to pick up a restaurant that has had like a bumpier ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I really didn't mind it. Like I was kind of like, well, let's do the best we can. I had a team of people that wanted to work with me, and I had worked with them for 4 or 5 years prior, so it wasn't really a huge, intimidating lift, and I didn't mind the amount of work. So we did the best we could, and ultimately, I think what ended up happening was, I think it ended up where exactly it needed to be, which is kind of maybe fateful, but I didn't think we'd get reviewed there, but we did get reviewed there. We actually got a lot of press there.
Yeah. Let's talk about press though, because EU is right in the moment of Eater 1.0, Joss Ozersky at like Grub Street or wherever, and like a really interesting media landscape covering New York City, like a lot of outlets like looking at the transactional nature of chefs, which now is like completely dead. No one gives a shit if a chef moves, which is unfortunate because it's actually better for the restaurants, good or bad. But I mean, you were like in Eater a lot. Like, what's it like? Take us back to that, because I like asking when like the chef side of this question.
I'll say I got plenty of coverage in publicity, and to some extent, I think it was good for what I did next. But to another extent, I think it's always challenging to kind of live up to expectations. I just expected to do the best I could, but I know that like the owner was seeking an excellent review.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to be, but he's part of the game, I guess, right? You just take it on the chin if you have to, and keep moving forward. Right.
It feels like such a different era, right? Do you agree? Like
totally different. Yeah. I mean, listen, the media landscape, I think in general, like, yes, it's totally different. And I think a lot of publications where things would be covered, I think are not covered anymore. Some of the Thanksgiving stuff, of course, or the regular annual things that continue to appear. But I think some of the more interesting things are gone. Like New York Magazine used to have the, Robin. Yeah, exactly. The interesting section that they did, or the under $20 type section of the New York Times, and the Sam Sifton things. And I think those things don't exist in the exact same way anymore. Instead, I think they're been replaced with other things in general,
like influencers, like dudes in hats showing up and reviewing your restaurant.
Yes, that happens. Yes,
with a ring light.
yes, that happens.
I'm cracking myself up. I saw some guys in hats at an event last night, an industry event, and they're literally 2 young guys in hats show up.
Yeah, it really is like, whereas you would get reviewed, by 3, 4, 5, 6 people, I remember at Craft Bar we got reviewed by, like the Observer, and
Bloomberg,
exactly. There
Wall
was
Street Journal, Times ×2,
Financial Times,
FT had a critic in New York,
and like we had a lot of those, a lot of reviews, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think just so many of those are not available anymore.
I know.
And there was a good thing about those reviews because they were very thoughtful, and I think it required them a lot of time to think about it because they only got to write about these things once.
Yeah.
And so I think it forced everyone to, kind of just think about things a little more. And now it just seems a little different in that you're right, anyone can review you at any given time, and it's really difficult to manage that all the time.
So there's Elitaria, right?
Elitaria, we got, ton of press.
Let's talk about Elitaria, because I remember that era as well, and that was like your own restaurant, correct?
That was my first place.
Yeah, your first place. What was that journey like for you?
rocky,
Yeah.
very up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had big expectations, I think, of myself and of the place. At the time, I guess we would have said we raised enough money, but we were far short of
Yeah.
where we needed to be. And I would say I was not well enough versed to make kind of the right decisions about how
As the
business.
boss.
Yeah, absolutely not the right decisions,
Yeah.
And my business partner is the same. I think he would say the same of himself, It was, I think, again, I think from a publicity perspective and a media perspective, wildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
From like a financial and business perspective, astounding failure.
What's the concept and what was the neighborhood? Just remind us, because I want to go over this.
Yeah, we were on 8th Street, where McDougal intersected it, literally. Just a few doors down from Loring Place, where Dan.
That's Loring Place's
so he's
kind of space, right?
He's like 3 doors east, I think.
Oh my God, the Shoe Street.
The Shoe Street, yeah.
8th Street, what an impossible place to open.
Well, at the time we were like, okay, it's changing.
Yeah, right.
This is the one block of 8th Street that's still west.
Yeah.
We thought there was a lot happening, and there was things happening, but it just never fully changed, I think, for us. But regardless, I think we got kind of as far as we could get.
Yeah. This is I think I reviewed Elitaria at Metro Mix when I was like a long forgotten publication. We did reviews.
Yes.
I feel like I liked it. That's why I feel like I've always had very positive impressions of your cooking. Like I've never had a negative thought, so I probably gave it a positive review.
I hope so. But we definitely gave it our all back then.
Yeah.
As a team, I would say not one plate ever was put up without being scrutinized.
Completely.
Yeah, totally.
You go on to open, do a bunch of things, and it really shows, Akhtar, your entrepreneurial nature. You worked on food halls. You were a chef at La Esquina and helped, make La Esquina a culinary destination, not just like a place where celebrities hang out.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about this like period after Elitaria, where you're doing concepts around the country. The La Esquina times must have been interesting.
Yeah, it was very much so. So. After Elitaria closed, I was very depressed.
Yeah.
I really...
You were?
Totally depressed.
Oh, man. How'd you get through it?
Time, I guess.
Yeah.
My daughter, I would say, more than anything. Yeah. Kind of investing more time in the relationship and making sure I appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah.
That was the right choice to make, by the way. I think over time, I was like, I really don't want to do the same thing I was doing. I don't want to have 3 people working on a dish. I would like to stop screaming and yelling so much.
You felt like you were?
Totally, Elitaria days. Yeah, I was very kind of, I think, a little less predictable.
Yeah.
But I was just so intense. It was a very intense kind of time. And there was a lot riding on your shoulders for that level of success that I guess, you put on yourself to some extent.
Well, you didn't have mentorship to show you the other way, because you look at Clicchio and he's the first to admit that can be a loud kitchen. Damien Weiss that can be a loud kitchen.
Sure.
Chang can be a loud kitchen.
Sure.
I mean, we can't hide from the reality of a cultural change in today's era.
Yeah.
That it was a different time.
Different time. Yeah. That plus I had a group of kind of kids that were working for me at the time. We're all kids, but working for me at the time that, they got it. They understood what we were after, and they understood the intensity required to get it where we want it to be. That being said, I didn't want to continue to pursue kind of my career in that same way after that. And I really said, I need to do something different. I have no idea what it is, but something with an equal amount of soul, but something also that is materially different. And this job for La Esquina popped up through a recruiter. And I said, I don't know anything about this food.
Really?
Almost nothing.
Mexican food was not like you knew it, but it wasn't.
I think Rick Bayless was the only chef I had heard of in the entire country doing Mexican at the time, literally. And I had eaten at his places in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know anything about it. And I said, okay, I'll try. And I went and talked to the owner, this guy James, and I told him, I was so open about it. James Gersten is his name. And he's like, you know what, Akhtar, as long as you're open to learning, I think if you're able to manage the environment, I think you can do this. I did pursue it, and I ended up staying there for like 4 years.
That's a lot. That's a run. Yeah.
It was a good size kind of run. I had a lot of responsibilities to manage at that time in my life, and it was a good job for me at that time. And they were willing to, I think, change the food, invest in the food, and make it as good as I could make it. And they kind of gave me that runway.
I mean, to be clear, this is like La Esquina as a central restaurant.
It was only one at the moment.
I think I'm not going to comment on the current La Esquina. I'll leave it at that. But when you were doing it, it's like one location, and it's like a very cool room, right? It's like where people. It's like must have been a fun restaurant to run.
It was, Soraya, who was the GM at the time, she's now manages Zero Bond, and she and I worked very closely together. We got along very well together, and I think we did the absolute best, we could with that restaurant. And it was high volume. It's very busy, and it was, open late, open very late.
Open late and definitely like A-list for New York at the time.
I feel very good about the food that we did there, and it was, again, it was a big learning curve for me, but I found myself much happier to be, I think, in that position of learning and taking a step back from some of the other management, ownership type things, and really just focus on cooking, even if it was something different.
What made you move on to other things after La Esquina after 4 years?
So after La Esquina, I just, I did partner with a fast casual Mexican concept called Choza.
Yeah.
And then I also opened up a health food company called Indie Fresh.
That's right.
And so there were two separate things happening at the same time. And then I also was consulting for a friend of mine on a restaurant in D.C. called Table.
It was called Table?
Yeah, it was called Table.
It's a challenging name.
Table, yeah, that was it, Table.
That's a challenge. I'm sorry. And no disrespect. This is a challenging name for a restaurant.
That's what they wanted, yeah, Table.
Okay.
And the owner, she had a couple of chefs that were there that were very well known, I think, prior to my helping out. Yeah. And so I kind of just started doing a few different things, and it was just kind of fun for me to dive into a few things and, again, expand this Mexican concept from 2 locations when I started to 5 locations.
Yeah.
And then growing the Indie Fresh concept from, kind of just an idea that was kind of direct to consumer to a couple of locations, and then having, things sold at like Equinox and Soho House and places like that.
Is Indie Fresh still around? Did it make it through?
No, it was, again, some of these startups are very tough to find the balance of, when you stop burning cash kind of thing.
I mean, it's nearly impossible with the margins in food. I mean,
it's very hard. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It was, and I think it was a good effort, but I was talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine who came in for dinner. Again, it's the same thing as I think what we did is really good. It's just, I think it would have taken millions of dollars to grow it.
Yeah,
many millions.
Like founders in the like fast casual QSR space, I don't know how they do it.
I think it's you have to keep raising money for eternity. Yeah, it seems like.
Well, let's actually dig into Wayward Fare a little bit more. I said at the top how much I enjoyed this balance of interesting flavors, but also making it very accessible. Mm-hmm. What's on the menu right now that you're really happy with? I mean, I mentioned to you fish and steak, but I feel like there's always a cool, and it's all shared plates too. That's the other thing I want to say. It's like I loved how your server when I was there was like a very assertive. You need 6 to 8 plates. And it's like, great, thank you. Let's not suggest. Let's just you're going to do 6 to 8 plates.
Yes, Kat's like that, yes.
Oh, it's her name, Kat? Well, shouts to Kat. She was great. I love her.
She's good. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have her.
Yeah.
We've done our best to educate people, I think, on how we want people to order.
Yeah.
And how I think they're going to get the best experience here. I think that we didn't, I looked for a different word for meze for I don't know how many months. I couldn't find anything that I liked, so we ended up calling it meze. But the things you find on the meze are not what you find on a typical meze. It's not, baba ganoush or, hummus or, that kind of thing. Instead, yes, we have an eggplant dish, dip or whatever. It's called ajvar. It's more of a Turkish-inspired, pepper and eggplant preparation. But, there's little twists in there. There's some, some vinegar. There's black garlic. There's some fermented, pepper paste that we do in-house. And and then lots of really good olive oil, and we emulsify these things together, makes it a little different,
Yeah.
And then we garnish it with some, coarsely chopped walnuts and cilantro. I find it to be super clean, very delicious, and you just want to keep eating it. Instead of like a cheese, like a ricotta cheese, like you would see somewhere, we use taleggio and then a farmer's cheese. And then we have a little bit of vinegar and olive oil, and we actually combine the vinegar with the cream, right?
Yeah.
And we get that to thicken. And then we take that thickened mixture and then whip it with the other two. And it stays in a very whipped, smooth, again, super spreadable, unctuous form. And we emulsify, again, lots of really good olive oil into it. So that's a couple of things.
I love, and like you're just the detail for just 2 of 7 or 8 mezes available.
5
mezes.
Yeah.
So
but we do run a couple of specials.
You do some
also.
specials too, yeah.
My favorite is actually this halim, which I would be remiss not to mention because it's a very Pakistani, Indian, Muslim kind of dish where it's like, again, it's kind of constructed around these peasant things. Like, yes, we're using chicken, but typically be lamb. And then they enrich it with like things like lentils and grains and rice and about a dozen and a half spices. And it's such an interesting blend of things that happen together. It's not like a French pâté where you're whipping fat into it. It actually isn't like that at all. There's no extra fat other than some clarified butter, some ghee that we add to it. But we poach the chicken, we take that out, we cool it, and then in that same fortified broth, we're cooking the grains and lentils and everything else. And I think normally they would just mash it all together and you'd eat it, right, with all the spices. But, to make it slightly more refined, I think we take that grain mixture and we puree it in a blender to make almost like a panade or like an emulsion. We take that creamy, rich emulsion, mix it with the chicken all together and all the spices, and we actually send it through the food mill. And this is like something like I would say I learned from Marco many years ago. Like the food mill is actually this really simple tool that we use for so many things.
Yeah, it's like the utility player.
It's just
prep.
an unsung hero of the kitchen, I think, because it gives you that rustic element that I want in some of these things without detailing the refinement of how we make it. And that's not what it's about. It's about, making sure that when I present it to you, that it feels homey and that elegance of rusticity is present. And that's kind of what we use it for.
Tell me about the spicy green salad, because that to me really stuck out, the way that you're adding actually heat to like a pretty traditional, just by sight, a European-centered salad.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool dish.
We didn't want to keep it kind of traditional, right? Chicory is so hearty and it stands up to so much that dressing it with a simple vinaigrette didn't feel like it made the right sense. Instead, we went the opposite direction and said, let me make it as bold as we can because I think these greens are so hearty, it'll stand up to it well. So it's really very simple. It's just the fermented pepper paste that we make in-house, reduced down as far as we can so it has a really rich umami to it. And then lemon juice and olive oil. And
it's a lemon juice. It's not vinegar. Cool.
No, it's lemon juice. So it's really a spicy citronette, right?
Yeah.
I think to make it a little different, we have these chewy oil-cured olives, which I like in there. We have little bits of fruit because that really balances well with the spicy. And then to really make a change, we do something that I learned in India when I was actually there before the pandemic. It's this gunpowder chutney.
Yeah.
You familiar with it?
I know the name. I feel like I've had it in the States, but not. I've been to India one time.
I've only ever had it with dosa. With dosas.
Dosa, yeah, exactly. Dosa.
And I called a friend of mine. I was like, listen, I want to make this gunpowder masala. Can we talk about it? And so we talked it through a little bit, and I ended up twisting in, putting some other things in there, like sesame seeds. But really, it's a dry roasted lentil.
Yeah.
That we use a couple of different varieties. We use these white ordered lentils, and then we use some red lentils, which are a little less Indian. We combine those two, we roast it slowly, and then it has lots of spices, sesame, and then we let it cool, and we actually put it in the blender and turn it into a powder. And that powder is what we kind of sprinkle on top. But it really gives it this very interesting, kind of ethereal, earthy component, which is like super different.
Because you've got that with the fermented chili vinaigrette, and it's kind of playing together.
It does. And then
Cool
we add in like some fresh, herbs like, parsley and tarragon, a few other things that really just brighten it up. So,
Spicy green salad is, in Korean cuisine, you see it here and there, but not with like winter greens, like hardy greens.
It's getting a little tougher to get the same chicory stuff.
Yeah, what are you gonna do in the summer with your salad? Are you gonna switch to like bib or
I don't know if it could really be the same. It can't be. Thing. Yeah, we're working on it now. So I like the vinaigrette a lot. It works well with a lot of vegetables, I find, but we're trying to figure it out now.
We could talk about this salad for another hour. Tell us a little briefly about Alta Calidad and what the concept is and the type of food you're doing there. Because I think that's been around longer. Some of our listeners may know it better.
Sure. So at Alta Calidad, it's been open since 2016, I think now.
Yeah.
16 or 17. I think early 17. It really just started out as just intended to be a really good neighborhood restaurant in Prospect Heights, and we found this corner space. But also, it didn't it was my first venture back to owning a place in quite a while, and I didn't want to overcommit to something I couldn't afford if it went south, right? So I always knew that if something happened at this place, like we could fund it.
Yeah,
right? My partner and I.
Smart.
And we don't have many investors, right? We only have a couple at this point.
They must be happy. It's been open since 16.
Yeah, everyone's happy.
Yeah,
but it's,
if you're open since 16, you're happy.
We got to sell a lot of tacos. Just keep that in mind.
You gotta sell a lot of tacos. Yeah,
a lot of tacos.
The margins are not as good. Yeah,
many tacos. Yeah. It's always intended to be, a creative thinking, I think, Mexican place. Innovative, I guess, to the extent of, how I can blend, I think, harmoniously Mexican and Indian. And we have a lot of Indian touches on that menu.
That's cool.
A little less so now than I think when we open. But it's still all very present. There's little things everywhere.
I feel like a lot of Mexican restaurants are switching or, bringing in flourishes from around the world.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's like, tacos, people like tacos.
They crush,
right? Yeah.
Do you have a birria? Is that like, do you do birria and all that?
We actually we just started, we did for like a quesadilla for quite some time. And, but it's not like the core of necessarily some of the things we do.
Yeah.
But one of our chefs just made Isaac made a birria queso, and it's got this short rib with like our queso that we make in house. It's really, really good.
It sounds good.
It's really good.
Yeah, send that out before the main show. That sounds good.
We're working on the Mexican meze. I'm not sure what we're going to call it yet. So we're trying to figure out something where we can try to kind of get that same experience.
You want pickle? You want flatbread? You want obviously a spread?
Something.
What a fun challenge.
I think so. I think it'll be fun because there's a lot of, quesos and guacamole. I don't
chicharron.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe chicharron to dip in your queso.
I think there's some chicharron on that plate. There's definitely some pickle.
There has been conversation for sure.
Oh, how fun. Akhtar, this has been such a pleasure. I really love talking about your story and your two restaurants now. I'm a huge fan of your work. I hope you can come back. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their certain tastes. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
Ready.
The best fruit.
Mangoes in India in season.
Love that answer. The worst vegetable.
Oh, no. I think sea cucumbers.
Please go there. It's never been mentioned.
I don't know. There's something about that texture and taste is really, I don't know. It's tough for me. I've always struggled with sea cucumbers. I don't know.
That's a great answer.
That's out there, I think, unfortunately. But yes, you really have to be in a specific place for it, I guess.
It's a mindset. What is your typical breakfast?
It's pretty simple. I think cottage cheese and like a spoonful of almond butter something like
That is great. So cottage cheese for breakfast.
That's very small.
Yeah.
I try not to eat anything till a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it's usually, I try to make sure it's something that's not too much sugar or
Not too
something
much sugar.
like that.
What about coffee? Are you doing any caffeination?
Coffee and oat milk, no sugar.
Oat milk, no sugar.
Yeah.
All right. The best dessert.
It's a tough one. I would probably say bananas Foster.
Oh, wow.
The best dessert.
Amazing. And what makes it so good?
The problem is gulab jamun is kind of the king of dessert too. I'm always conflicted.
Gulab
Maybe there's a world.
Explain that a bit, because I had it in Mumbai. It was incredible.
Gulab jamuns, they're just like, it's an Indian donut. It's soaked in a rose water syrup. For dessert, we do that at Wayward Fair, except it's cannelé instead, and saffron and cardamom. It's
so good.
King of dessert.
Is there a restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead?
Bizou.
Tell me about it.
And Bizou, I used to work there for Loretta Keller. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was that at?
San Francisco.
Yeah, it was SF. When you're craving fast food, where are you going?
It's a place in Louisville. It's called Ollie's Trolley. And it's like, it literally is like a caboose on a train, like a little trolley car kind of thing. It's in the middle of a parking lot. There's not much it's not much around it really, and they have just simple burgers that they use the Ollie spice.
Oh wow!
Any Louisvillian's going to know about it, but they use this Ollie burger spice, and it's got very strange things in it. Like I actually don't know what's in it, but there's definitely like celery salt and onion powder, garlic powder, caraway, a few different things, and then they season their French fries with the same thing.
Oh, cool! They had the utility player, like
it's really good.
And it like all
unheard of.
Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
For food, I'd say Lucknow, where my mom's from.
Yeah.
What's
it like there?
It's a very my name and like Nawab, it has a very long history in Lucknow. And I would say I've been there many times with my mother, and I've been fortunate enough to kind of eat around a lot around that town where she grew up. So I think I was introduced to it. But there's just a real richness, I think, culturally and otherwise, I think, with the food in that area.
That's cool. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich? I'd probably say a French dip.
Nice.
If I had
you make it yourself, or is there a restaurant that does it?
No, we make it. We've actually been trialing them at the restaurant for some other stuff. So I would probably say French dip.
So what's important about the jus, like the actual dip?
It's funny. So the jus was a big conversation point lately.
It's the most important part.
It's very important. Richness and viscosity is what we came away. It can't be too watery. It can't be too loose. It has to be able to really stick to it.
Yep.
And I think
call.
The bread has to be crunchy enough to where it isn't confused with like a cheesesteak or something.
Should you be able to drink the jus straight?
I think it should be like not quite light like a consommé, but a little heartier. So yes, you should be able to take a swig of it.
That's what I'm saying. Because like some of the jus you'll get, and it's like inedibly salty.
No, you
don't want.
So we were struggling with the salt component because it's all based on the drippings and the meat that were already seasoned.
Right.
So we're like, well, we don't want to make beef stock necessarily specifically for this, so we got to figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out because you got to use what you're getting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to try that out.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Akhtar Nawab, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Javier Cabral, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you?
Oh man, this week I finally feel like I'm coming up for air after, more than 40 days of nonstop coverage of ICE's siege of Los Angeles, and especially how it pertains to our food culture here.
Well, let's just start there. You are the editor of LA Taco, and before these current events, LA Taco was covering the culture and the food culture of Los Angeles, definitely reporting about your community, but known as a food publication mostly. But over the past couple months, LA Taco has become an invaluable resource for reporting on ICE activity in Los Angeles. And I'm just I'm thrilled to talk to you and just hear about what's happening in your community. And I just want to ask at first, like, how are you doing, and how is the community doing?
So it's a big question. Two questions, two big questions. How I'm doing, I it's pretty, it's crazy. I've been doing this for, I've been, writing for a living for 20 years. So I've developed a system of, just handling deadlines and being amused by them, and not get overwhelmed by them. But in this case, it was so many tips were coming in, uh, like so fast. So like from all, from our emails, from our DMs on Instagram, from just people texting me, like people like on the street yelling at me, that it was like another level of demand for news. So it was I, I personally had to develop new strategies for dealing with the load of just people of information, of everyone needing stories. And then how's everyone doing? I think everyone in LA right now, they're breathing a sigh of relief, but it's a temporary one, because it really does feel like we're in the eye of the storm right now with this temporary restraining order that actually has made a difference in the racial profiling of a lot of undocumented street vendors, including a lot of food vendors in LA. We are seeing it was almost like overnight. It all came to a screeching halt out of nowhere. So it feels like in a weird, Black Mirror Twilight Zone situation where it's like a false sense of peace. But I'm pretty sure that everyone here will take it.
Yeah, I'm heartened to hear that, but I know you're being cautious because things can change overnight, literally. When Javier, when you receive a tip, either from to email or DM, how do you go into action at LA Taco with your team to report on ICE activities, the way that the street vendors in the food community and others are being affected? Because I think you're doing something very important. It's a documentation of what is happening to individual stories. They're not always holistic stories. They're like really detailed and personal accounts.
So the way that we reacted to all this like waves of nonstop, hundreds of tips from all of our from every different from our tip hotline, I'm sorry, our tips email, our personal emails, like everything I said earlier, is it was an instinctual reaction to covering as best as we can. And when this first started, it was only four full timers at LA Taco. It's me, it's Hadley Talmicki, who is our co-founder and my deputy editor, and Alexis Olivier Ray, who's our investigative reporter, and then Janet Villafana, who is our community reporter, multimedia. And some of these things were happening so fast that I just in my gut, I just knew that I had to take this very risky approach of actually uh, going against everything that we think is the way to be sustainable in journalism and local journalism, which is to have paywalls, which is to have subscriptions. And I just told the team, like, hey, everyone, we need to just get this information out there because we are a service publication. We do provide services to the community, and it's like we can't get it out fast enough, so we need to just do videos. And it seemed like a weird thing at first, but it just seemed like like that feeling. I call it like your journalistic sixth sense, your gut feeling of there's certain things that you have to act on, even though it may go against the written rules of certain things. Like that's what I decided to do, and lo and behold, it's really worked out for us to the point where a year ago we actually had to furlough our staff because we just ran out of money, straight up, because we are an independent publication. We have no nonprofit safety net, and we just hit a lull. It was the lull that was expected because if you're a journalism nerd or if you work in this industry, we all knew that with the new AI summaries on Google and how that was going to overnight kill journalism. And we got the brunt hit of that. So it was expected, but it still sucked. And then who would have thought that in 2025 the solution to us becoming almost sustainable with an asterisk is was actually giving away all of our work on Instagram for free.
Right. And then the hope was, of course, giving the information to the community and making it free and available, but also you were hoping that there'd be some new subscriptions, right? People would support you in a patronage model, or just to read all your other terrific work that's paywalled to get there. Did that net out?
It's netting out right now, man. I remember last year when we furloughed our staff, our magical number is 5,000 memberships, which in a city, and I'm sorry, in a county of Los Angeles, which is home to 10 million people, it doesn't seem like that much, but at the same time, it's really hard to just get people to click outside of doom scrolling and direct them to a platform. And so the 5,000 number last year seemed so distant. It seemed so unattainable. Like we were trying everything, but as you know, journalism and media is changing at the speed of light, and everything that we thought we knew over the last decade or so, or 2 decades, it's just nothing was working. So it was a risky move, but I don't know. I think the one truth that has prevailed, fortunately, is show don't tell. So we just kept showing consistent work, consistent videos that our community, our readership, our viewership appreciated. And we started to also break through to outside of our echo chamber of followers. And, we started to get famous people that were commenting, and I was like, what the hell? Like people are watching, people are viewing. So, it was almost like embracing, this big, scary, algorithm that so many journalists, or legacy journalists, I should say, were so scared we're so scared of. And, and now it's a different contextual viewpoint. And now it's helping us, and we're actually at 4,800 members now.
Oh my God, 200 left to get that initial
200
goal.
left, yeah,
right.
200 left, yeah, and it's like, yeah, it was like, trust me, it's been a very emotional roller coaster all around, just because obviously it's affecting, the community that I grew up with and that I'm a part of, and also, but also seeing that, last year I took it personal as the editor in chief, right? I can't help it, even though I try to be objective, and I know all the data out there. I just felt like I failed my team. I failed my team, and I had survivor's guilt because I was the only one that was left on the payroll to try to figure this out with our publisher. And then now a year later, we're at the cusp of we hired like a part-time editor. I'm a part-time social media assistant. This week. So it's just been, and we hired another full-timer last week too. So it's like, everything that we're making, we're reinvesting it right back into the platform, and to use this momentum for sure.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that, Javier, that you're close to that goal, and I think Taste listeners should support LA Taco, not just because of the local work in Los Angeles, but because of some of the wider view reporting. And I think one of the pieces that I'm going to link to in the show notes that I think is very important for all Americans in this current situation is a really clear guide. It's a piece of service journalism, and it talks about it reports in great detail what to do if you're stopped by ICE in your car, in a bus, and a train. I mean, really broad transportation options. So I think that's good information for all Americans, all listeners of the show. Now, I think people should read that and kind of study it. But in general, are there some guide rails that you would suggest to our listeners?
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting time to be putting out these stories, because these were accepted truths in the Constitution and rights, but as we've all seen, and multiple times over and over again, in video documentation of this, and in multiple articles, now at this point all over the world, because people from all over the world came to LA to document this moment. If you're out there in the streets, you saw people from like yesterday, for example, we had like someone from the Czech Republic who was shattering us in our meeting. So yes, I mean, the basic essentials is just remain. You can stay silent and not have to say anything, no matter how much bullying or no matter how antagonistic a federal officer wants to be. And the other thing is, one thing that I want to make very clear is that LA Taco has worked extremely diligently to confirm that there have been no ICE raids inside of restaurants in LA. So I'll repeat that again. ICE has not entered a restaurant or a kitchen in this 45 days later, or almost 2 months later. And that goes against what a lot of if you grew up watching, like we just did a retrospective on a Cheech and Chong movie 2 days ago, because we also still celebrate that part of LA film culture too, as much as we can, even though it's dying. But if you're familiar with that movie, classic movie, there was a very funny scene, or at the time funny, of ICE or Department of Homeland Security going into a restaurant, and all like the cooks running out the kitchen, and it was like a very funny scene back then. But yeah, exactly. But that's not happening. What's happening right now is public spaces is the name of the game. So if you're in a public space, up until this federal order this federal temporary restraining order was granted, they would just grab you in the street if you had an indigenous looking face. And we also published a really good article on knowing how to navigate a consensual stop, which is what federal officers are stopping you for. So consensual stop essentially means, you're walking. Imagine the scenario that you're walking on the sidewalk to park your car you park your car and you're walking to a restaurant, or you're going to go grab some tacos, and a SUV with tinted windows and unmarked tags just stops you and asks you, "Hey, are you from here?" Even by you looking at that person, at the officer or the person who's at least saying that they're an officer, if you look or if you respond in any kind of way, that's called a consensual encounter, and you're giving them access to them talking to you, or to them, asking you questions. If you're, are you born here? But you don't have to answer any of those questions. And that's what we try to make clear. And all of our ICE stories that are resources like this story on consensual encounters, how to navigate if you're stopped, in public transportation, or in a train, or in a car. These are all free on LA Taco too. We removed the paywall on these because we trust our gut in a lot of these decisions, and we run the site very horizontal. Yes, I am the editor in chief, but everyone's input is just as important. So, if someone speaks up and says, "Hey, it doesn't feel right to charge for this article," I'm going to listen, and we're going to talk about it, and most likely we're probably going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they're probably right. So yes, all of our ICE coverage on the site is free, so you can send it, read it, and right now we're in the process of translating everything into Spanish as well.
Wonderful to hear, and more of the reason to support. Let's go back to the kitchen example. What's the message to restaurant workers then? Maybe not just in Los Angeles, but nationwide. I guess public spaces are being targeted. Restaurants are not being targeted. So what's the message?
One thing that I've seen is how quick restaurant owners here have unified together against any kind of differences they must have had, and to establish courses and lessons and the essentials of defending yourself against ICE if that moment ever came. So yes, the crucial tip, I would say, if you own a restaurant and if you want to be if you want to be super protected, is to have a clearly marked employees only sign, in your kitchen or in any kind of office setting, or any kind of, if you have an open kitchen, you can still put an employees only in the access point to enter that area. And by having a clear sign that says employees only, or staff only, or private entry, or whatever kind of sign that you have on there, that's a way of delineating that this is private property, and a federal officer cannot enter this property, and you have the right as the restaurant owner to stop them. The only asterisk to that is if they have a warrant signed by a judge. But you got to remember, in the heat of the moment, it's really hard to especially if you wear glasses, or if you're stressed out, or if you're have anxiety about the situation, it's going to be really hard to ask for that. And we've also seen that a lot of these federal agents claim to have warrants, and they show you some kind of paperwork, but we've actually analyzed the videos and took screenshots and actually zoomed in on a lot of these documents, and they're not actual warrants by judges. They're warrants issued by the director of the Department of Homeland Security. So it's just about asserting asserting your rights, asserting your confidence. And this is a big moment, I would say, for allyship in the U.S. If you are not an undocumented person, but if you deeply care for them, this is your chance to use your privilege to help them and to defend, because chances are, if you're a white skinned person or a white person, you're not going to get messed with.
So to recap, staying silent, it is your right. If you operate a restaurant, to have very clear signage that says employees only, and also to look at the documents and look for the warrant. That's important to do. And of course, you acknowledge in the heat of the moment, even the most stoic person is going to be affected by this stress involved with seeing an officer in their space. But these tips should be kept in mind.
Yes, and one more crucial one that can save you a lot of headaches later when you start the litigation process, which everyone is starting to do right now. So I'm starting to see the waves of this, right? And the waves of this, it was also dramatic and violent when it was first starting, but now you're starting to see a lot of lawsuits happening, and these lawsuits they do work. I know it's like a funny capitalistic thing to like, oh, our lawsuits, can you sue your way out of the situation? But I want to say, like, it was because of all these lawsuits that all these organizations and cities signed on to, which is what made the federal judge, or at least assisted in her decision to grant this temporary restraining order. So when that moment comes, the best thing you can do is to, like, it's like common law, and is to document everything. And you do have the right to 100% like right, which again you can be intimidated on this, or try to scare you, or in a moment of the heat of the situation, an agent may try to swipe your phone away from you, but you can 100% document, film the whole damn thing with your phone, or use your surveillance cameras in your restaurant. And federal officers do not have the right to ask for that footage, and also do not have the right to confiscate your phone, or do not have the right to ask you to delete that footage. Again, they may try, because it doesn't, you don't need you have a high school to work. We've also confirmed at LA Taco, which is crazy, that, they're offering as much as like $25,000 or $50,000 signing bonuses, and then starting you out at more than $100K with a high school diploma, to join ICE as an agent, and that's because, we all know that this quote unquote big beautiful bill was signed, and it is now, ICE and federal and Border Patrol has a lot more money. So you're seeing this, and so a lot. What we're seeing is that a lot of, there's been rumors, and we have not been able to verify this, of like quote unquote bounty hunters. But what we have been able to confirm through community patrols, highly organized volunteers that form hotlines, which are police alternatives, is that these federal officers that are in the streets right now, they don't move their bodies around like someone who has any kind of formal training, like a police officer. They don't, they do things very out of like not very calculated, and you can tell, like, a lot of the, from one of my interviews, I got to go on a ride along with the biggest one called Unión del Barrio, and he's the leader of this, and he was telling me, you can just tell in the way like you can see the fear in their eyes. Like, he's like, come on, you're telling me that, like, if you accept the sign-on bonus from like somewhere in the Midwest, and you get assigned to go, do an ICE raid on like the middle of Compton or the middle of Watts, which are these heavily like hood areas in LA that have a lot of gang presence, and if you've seen movies about LA, there's a little bit of fear there, and then our biggest story, LA Taco, that which was crazy, is that, I'm sorry, one of the only federal officers that worked for the Department of Homeland Security, that actually was the only one that did not wear any kind of face protection, or didn't try to conceal their face in any way. This guy ended up coming to Long Beach, getting really drunk at a yard house, following a woman into the restroom, and then when police showed up, when he was confronted by the security guard, he brandished his gun to the police, and he got really drunk, and he was just being a creep, and this was a federal agent that worked for DHS that we had documented clearly, that was one of the ones who detained an American citizen, because another tip that we're working to verify ASAP, and it's looking like it's true, is that that federal officers are getting paid per person that they detain,
Wow, that's
which is
something I've never read.
yeah. So
That's like
we just got the
archaic. I mean, that's like uh,
and we just got this tip yesterday, and we broke it, in our daily memo show on Instagram, and you can actually hear proof. You can it's this is today is July 24th, Thursday. So if you look at the daily memo for Wednesday, July 23rd on our Instagram account, there's audible proof of an American citizen who was detained, and even though he was shouting, I'm American, I was born here," you can hear the federal officers, because the phone kept recording, saying, I can smell that bonus right now," or I can, which is crazy. Yeah. So again, so it's a wild time to be living in right now. But all I can say is that you don't have to feel helpless. You don't have to feel sad about this. There are many things you can do to be active and support your the community that you love.
well, that's a good segue to the work you do outside of the news cycle, which is the taco scene in Los Angeles. And I think listeners of our show seek out Los Angeles for the best in the world. And I mean, tell me a little bit about how you can balance all this news cycle with staying true to your principle of writing about taquerias and taqueros and all the wonderful work being done in the kitchens of Los Angeles.
Yeah, this news cycle really was bewildering to me as an editor in chief, because I've had the fortune and misfortune, depending on how you look at it, to also cover a lot of big moments in history, like the Black Lives Matter movement here in LA, the pandemic, the catastrophic fires. These are three big, like, historic moments in LA that I've covered. And one thing that what's the one thing that happens with all these is that the news cycle was relatively, like, once these things happen, once, like, the vaccine, once the vaccine for COVID-19 happened, once these fires, subsided, once the Black Lives Matter movement, had a couple of weeks of protests and demonstrations, like, it all kind of fizzled out, right? It was maybe a couple of weeks long. The pandemic one was a bit of an exception, but everything had its cycle, and this ICE cycle has been roaring, like, on, like, it hasn't, like, it's been almost 2 months now, and all of our top articles are still ICE vehicles. So we're still heeding that. We're still listening to our readers and seeing and knowing, we know that that's what they want to read. But also, what we're also starting to see is, like, the direct economic onslaught that these ICE raids have caused on the city of Los Angeles. And so many restaurants, whether it's a high-end restaurant, or whether it's like a mom and pop, a hole in the wall in the corner. A lot of these restaurants are suffering all over LA. I mean, as it is, it was already so hard to be sustainable here as a food business, because the high cost of living, the minimum wage, the rising cost in food, and this was just another thing to that, like, was impeding that, just being to have a successful business. And so we also can't ignore that, because we're so directly connected to LA's informal economy of street vending, but we're also have so many friends and contacts in the food industry that are chefs or restaurant owners or whatever, and they communicate to us. They tell us directly, and so now we're like, okay, now as an editor in chief, I'm making the editorial decision to start covering these like, restaurants again, and start bringing attention to, like, to which restaurants are on the cusp of shutting down because they just haven't had business in the last 2 months. Real talk, like, a lot of business came to a standstill. If it wasn't because of a lot of customers were either too scared to come out to eat, or were either too emotionally distraught to come out and eat and pretend like life's okay. It was also because of a lot of their workforce, which does depend on a lot of undocumented labor, were also too scared to come out and work. So I've been saying that, like, we're gonna see the effects of these ICE raids on LA's restaurant industry for, I would say, for years to come, because we already had so many things against the restaurants here. We had the fires just this year alone. We had the fires. We had the trickling of the diminished business because of all the SAG-AFTRA and the Hollywood strikes, which was a big way for a lot of restaurants to make money through all the caterings. So those two dried up. And then now we're seeing this now too, whereas some restaurants were barely bouncing back from all the financial woes from the pandemic. So, we have to keep the show. The show must keep. The show goes on. We have to keep reporting on this. So we are actually starting to report more food stories, and we're gonna do our best. I mean, I don't know. We take it day by day, story by story, because it's again, you never know when this this tantrum politics can like fire back up again, and we have to be at the ready. And we are at the ready. Like yesterday, we had a team meeting, and we're like, okay, things are coming down right now, but like let's just stay ready for whenever this happens. But like I said, uh, you know, the local police department has also really, I would say, calmed down too, because there aren't as many protests. I'm sure you saw that, like almost all the Marines and almost all the or half of the Marines and half of the National Guard, was deployed back out of LA, because there's not much going on anymore in terms of protests and demonstrations. But we're still monitoring very, very carefully. And luckily, because we've been covering these marginalized communities for the last 20 years, we really do have eyes all over the county.
Well, Javier Cabral, thank you so much for bringing deep context and reporting on this historical event, and it's important to keep supporting LA Taco. Again, I'm linking to the website in the show notes. You can support becoming a subscriber. And man, I wish you all the best. I hope you can come back and give us some updates. And I am really hopeful for Los Angeles right now.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. And our mayor and the general consensus that we've been seeing is that LA was an experiment on this, right? It was made to what the such severe ice raids was an experiment to see how local people how residents would react, how local politicians would react. And with this new injection of a whole lot of money into into the DHS, it's not. I wouldn't say it wouldn't be too out of the ordinary if this direct style of immigration enforcement is replicated in other major cities in the U.S. I mean, I know New York saw some action. I know Portland continues to have some action. Chicago, but who knows? Again, it could what we all saw in LA can very well happen in any other major city.
Well, we'll leave it at that. I thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Matt.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanal and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.